Social intelligence is reading people, understanding what is happening in a room, and then knowing how to respond to that in a way that gets you what you want while keeping relationships intact. And what I love about Blair and Serena is that they are both incredibly socially intelligent and as a result, undeniably powerful. They both command attention, they both influence the people around them, and they both get exactly what it is that they want. But the way that they do it could not be more different, and that difference is exactly what makes them so worth studying. Welcome back to the It Girl Playbook. Today we will be heading over to the Upper East Side because if you want a masterclass in social intelligence, Gossip Girl gives you two of the best case studies in Blair Waldorf and Serena van der Woodsen. We're going to break down what each of them is actually doing, understand why it works so that we can be inspired to adopt some of their values and lessons into our lives so that we can level up and become more socially intelligent ourselves. That said, let's get right into it, starting with our first character, Blair Waldorf. Blair is not the most naturally charming person in the room. In fact, she is painfully aware of this, and so she does something far more strategic than trying to rely on her natural charm, which she knows she lacks. She outthinks, she outperforms, and she outdoes everyone around her. Blair's social power is built on strategy, precision, and an utmost ruthless understanding of how people work. She doesn't wait for power to come to her, she quite literally architects it. But how? Which leads us to our first lesson: know the rules of the room better than anyone else. Blair's greatest social weapon is her understanding of systems. She knows exactly how the social hierarchy of the Upper East Side works, who has power, who wants it, who's threatened by whom, and what the unspoken rules are that keep everything in place. And because she understands the system better than anyone else, she knows exactly how to move within it and when to break it. The very first episode gives us everything we need to understand how Blair operates. Serena returns to Manhattan with the iconic line, "Welcome back, Queen Serena," and almost overnight, the social balance shifts. On the surface, Blair has everything: the boyfriend, the friends, the title, but Serena's return, it cracks that illusion. And what it reveals is something most people never want to admit, that the social power Blair had wasn't as solid as it looked. It was constructed, carefully maintained, deliberately managed, and suddenly vulnerable. And while Serena's return exposed how vulnerable that construction was, it proves a valuable point that social dynamics, they can't be constructed. The hierarchy, the influence, and the perception of power, none of it is fixed or as natural as it appears. Most of it is deliberately built by people who understand the rules well enough to use it, which means that it can't be built by anyone willing to study those rules closely enough. Blair understood that better than anyone, and that understanding is what separates her social power from Serena's. Serena's magnetism is natural, it simply just exists. Blair's power is architected. She built it intentionally, maintained it strategically, and when Serena's return threatened it, she didn't fall apart. She simply assessed the situation, she identified exactly where her position was vulnerable, and then acted on it accordingly. Every room you walk into has a system, a dynamic, and most people walk into a room and just simply exist inside the dynamic that is already there. They follow the rules without ever stopping to examine it. But here's the truth about any social dynamic: you are either influencing it or you are being influenced by it. Blair chose a long time ago which one she was going to be, and it's her willingness to study the room, to understand it more deeply than anyone else in it, that gives her the upper hand every single time. Social intelligence isn't just about being good with people, it's about understanding the environment those people exist in and knowing how to navigate it deliberately. That's what Blair does, and that's what makes her incredibly dangerous. And it's the same understanding that will make the next lesson possible, because when you know the rules of the game better than anyone else in the room, you never have to do the most to win, which means you can do less and get more, which takes us to lesson number 2, use precision over force. Blair never wastes energy. She doesn't make big dramatic moves when a small precise one will do. She identifies exactly what someone wants, what they fear, and what they need, and she uses that specific piece of information to move them in the direction that she wants. Yes, Serena can work an entire room because she influences through presence actions and through warmth. But Blair will influence the one person that will get her what she needs because her strength lies in clarity and precision. The Yale example is one of the clearest illustrations of this. Yale is everything to Blair, and when she sits down with the admissions officer, she doesn't try to charm her way in. In fact, she tells the admissions officer straight up that she isn't good with people, and so instead she hands him a portfolio that highlights all of her accomplishments and showcases her strengths. She leads with what she's actually good at rather than wasting her time forcing herself to be someone she isn't. That's someone who knows herself well enough to know which play to make, and she ends up getting an offer from Yale. Another incredible example of this is how Blair handles Georgina. Georgina is a uniquely dangerous threat because she doesn't just challenge Blair's social position, she knows things, secrets that could unravel everything Blair has built. But rather than doing the most, Blair simply orchestrates a plan to undermine her credibility so that even if Georgina does expose the secrets, it makes it harder for anyone to take her seriously. This is social intelligence at the highest level, to achieve what you want and to protect what you value. Two completely different situations, but the same operating principle of never wasting energy trying to force outcomes. She simply reads the situation, identifies the smartest play, and executes it with precision. Force is actually a sign of poor social intelligence because it usually means that you don't have the read on the situation well enough to find the smarter move. The most powerful people in any room rarely needs to raise their voice because they've already figured out where the pressure point is. And when you know exactly where to press, you don't need to press very hard at all. That's what it means to achieve what you want and to protect what you value without ever wasting a move. Next, let's take a look at Serena van der Woodsen. Serena is everything Blair is not on the surface. She's warm, she's spontaneous, emotionally open, and completely unguarded. And yet she is just as powerful. The difference is that Serena's power doesn't come from strategy. It comes from presence, which is why she doesn't work for the room's attention. The room simply comes to her. Which brings us to our first lesson. Presence is its own kind of power. Serena, she doesn't try to be magnetic, and I think that's the whole point. She's not calculating her entrance or thinking about how she's coming across. She's just fully, completely herself, and that authenticity is so rare that it pulls people in automatically. She laughs freely, she's genuinely interested in people, she doesn't edit herself in real time the way that Blair does, and that lack of self-consciousness is exactly what makes her so compelling. There's a reason that when Serena walks into a party, the entire room shifts. She moves like someone who has never once questioned whether she belongs. That ease, that comfort in her own skin gets projected outward, and people are magnetized by it because most of us spend so much energy monitoring how we're coming across that we're never fully present in the room and in the moment. People are drawn to her because she represents the very thing that she aspires to be, and then they treat her like she belongs because she acts like she does. And the lesson here isn't just about confidence, it's about what happens when you stop managing yourself, because you cannot manufacture presence, but you can stop undermining it. Most people are so busy managing their own self-perception. Am I coming across well? Do they like me? Am I saying the right thing? Am I saying the wrong things? That they never actually show up fully. Presence is what happens when you drop all of that and just trust yourself to be enough. Serena never questioned whether she was enough, and that confidence, that ease is exactly what makes her so magnetic. But here's what's worth noting about presence. It attracts, but it doesn't hold. We've probably all been in a situation where we're drawn to someone across the room. Maybe they were funny, they were attractive, they look like someone who is well respected, but when you actually talk to them, it just falls flat. There's a gap between presence and connection. Presence gets people to come to you. That's how Serena got opportunities and people attracted to her with ease. What you do once they arrive is a completely different skill, and that's where Serena's second lesson comes in. Warmth is a social superpower. While Blair moves through the world strategically, Serena moves through it emotionally. She connects with people quickly, genuinely, and deeply. She's the person at the party who makes a stranger feel like an old friend within 10 minutes. She's the one people confide in, they gravitate towards, and root for, even when she's made mistakes and even when she technically doesn't really deserve it, because she makes people feel something, and that feeling is what turns a moment of attention into something lasting and into actual tangible influence, whether you mean to intentionally or not. The most compelling proof of this is Blair herself. These are two women who compete, who betray each other, who have every reason to walk away, and yet they always come back back. Their friendship survives things that most relationships wouldn't, and it's not because they're obligated to each other, it's because Serena's warmth is genuinely hard to walk away from, even when you want to. But it's not just Blair. There's Rufus, who wanted nothing to do with Serena's rules and had every reason to keep his distance. There's also Eric, who was completely withdrawn and isolated when Serena came back into his life. There's even Georgina, who knew every dark corner of Serena's past and kept coming back anyways. Serena wins all of them over, not through strategy, not through leverage, not through forcing anything or anything calculated, but simply through the way she makes people feel, and that's not luck. Because with that many people and in that many situations, it's a pattern, and that pattern is a proof of skill. It's easy to get the idea that being warm equates to softness and softness equates to weakness, but that cannot be more false. When people feel genuinely seen and valued by you, they want to be around you, they want to help you, they want you to win. Presence might get people through the door, but warmth is what makes them want to stay. And nobody likes to admit that people have this power or influence over them, which is exactly why it makes this kind of influence so effective. It doesn't feel like influence, it feels like someone who actually cares. It feels like it's your friend. It disarms even the most guarded people. It creates connection faster than anything else, and it's the hardest thing in the world to walk away from. Blair and Serena could not be more different. One is strategic, precise, and architecturally brilliant in the way she builds and protects her power. The other is warm, effortless, and magnetic in a way that no amount of strategy could even come close to manufacturing. Yet both of them are undeniably, powerfully, socially intelligent. And I think that's the whole point. We spend so much time thinking that social intelligence looks one specific way, that you have to be commanding or strategic or just effortlessly charming, but Blair and Serena prove that there is no one way to be socially intelligent. Maybe you're more like Blair, you're observant, you're strategic, you think 10 steps ahead. Own that, sharpen that skill. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who understands the room better than anyone in it. Maybe you're more like Serena. You lead with warmth, you connect easily, your presence does the work before you even have to open your mouth. Trust that. Stop trying to be more calculated and let your authenticity and your charm become the strategy. Or maybe you're somewhere in between. Then you take the precision of Blair and the warmth of Serena and you build something entirely your own, because at the end of the day, social intelligence isn't about becoming someone else. It's about understanding yourself well enough to show up fully, deliberately, and powerful. And to do so, you need to lean into your own strengths. Because once you master yourself, you will master the world around you. So take the lessons that resonates, sharpen it so that you too can become more socially intelligent and master any room that you are in. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you in our next episode. And in the meantime, as always, stay hot. Bye.